Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Up the Dale podcast. We have been away for a while, and we're back again with another guest from the club, and we're going to be discussing a few club issues because things have moved on a little bit in the cricket world since we've last been on the podcast. So again, I'll introduce my co-host Dave Maguire. Dave, nice to see you again.
Yeah, evening Neil, how are you?
I'm very well, pal. And our guest of honour, once again, we get all these Dale legends on. A man who's been at the club many years, and has, along with his cohort who was on the other day, Mr. Gareth Winstanley, has many tales to tell. Good evening, Mohammed Nazif. How are you?
Evening, gentlemen. Evening. There's not many of us left of us legends, so you know.
Why we're wheeling you out now?
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to make use of you while we've got you. Absolutely. So, yeah. As I mentioned, there is some other stuff to talk about. First of all, what I'd like to talk about and say a thank you is actually to BBC Radio Lancashire. This afternoon, we were kindly invited on, or I was kindly invited on, to discuss a not so nice topic, but we had our covers damaged, vandalised, which we've done a GoFundMe for, which has been very generously supported by not just club members but people within cricket in the wider community. So we were invited on Radio Lancashire to discuss that. As I said, not a great subject to have to go on and discuss, but it was really kind of the guys to let us on and discuss the situation that we've been faced with. So that was a really nice experience. We're just going to kick things off in proper with a discussion about some general cricket issues that are going on at the moment that are impinging on Wharton as a club. One of those is outdoor practice, and I think in a couple of the other podcasts we discussed the potential for outdoor practice. We now seem to be getting to the stage where that's going to be going ahead for Wharton, which will be quite a big relief for a lot of guys. So I'm just going to open it today first because you've been involved in the process of trying to sort this. It's good to try and ultimately looking like we're coming to a resolution on this, Dave.
Yeah, firstly, it'll obviously be great for club members because we've had, a really good response from members and players who are keen to get out there, get practicing. Obviously, fully appreciative of the fact there may be no cricket at all this season, but they just want to get out there and practice, which is great. And obviously, we're going to try and do all we can to make sure that they can do so. Yeah, I mean the sort of the restrictions on practice, they'll be difficult for people to get to grips with, I'm sure, making sure they socially distance, and I think there's particular rules about picking the ball up after it's been delivered and things like that, and obviously no sharing of equipment, and there needs to be, I think, a register as well. So there's lots, quite rightly, of course, there's got to be some safety netting put in by the governing body, the ECB, for practice to restart. But I think it's just a case of us just working out the practicalities of it now as an amateur sports club, and trying to work out how we actually are able to meet all of those requirements. I'm sure we will. There's a lot of willingness, as I said, to get going. But I think it's just a case of just sort of working things through now, just to make sure that we can do all we can, and hopefully it won't be long before things are eased further and it just becomes a little bit easier for us to get out there training.
Now, from your point of view, obviously you were involved with the pre-season and how good the club was looking, both from a club point of view and a first team point of view, which you'd have been involved with. Just getting back out there and getting some practice now, how much do you think that'll benefit people?
Yeah, guys. Like I said earlier, this pre-season, I mean, like I said, we've been around a lot, at Walton, and I've seen a lot of pre-seasons, and I managed to get down to a couple of nets earlier this year, and the atmosphere that I saw this year and the excitement going into a new season, to be honest, I've not seen that for a very long time. Number of factors. We didn't have a very good season last year. We went away in the last season. We had, we regrouped, we sat down, and we basically went through, all the guys sat down what went wrong, and we kind of got together, put some certain plans together, came back, and we were looking a lot stronger. So there's a lot of obviously fresh blood coming into the club as well.
Yeah.
That was very good to see. I managed to get down to quite a few nets. Really exciting. Everybody were looking forward to it, and really looking forward, positive. And then obviously all this very unexpected things happen, obviously. But yeah, I think going into the new season, at last, hopefully, a chance to get out on the field. Everybody's frustrated over the past couple of months, sat inside the house, not able to get out there. But yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to it, and should be good. Get everybody get out there, and hopefully we can get a bit of cricket in.
Yeah,
I think that's right. Just to carry on that, I think he's right. We mentioned on an earlier podcast about how the vibe coming off pre-season in the winter nets was so good, and everybody was really motivated and excited. And it's pleasing, like Naz has said, that seems to have carried on leading up to now when we're trying to get outside. Because as I said, we've got good levels of interest in people just getting out there to have a net. So it's really good to see that that has continued during this lockdown period, and we just hope that we can actually sort of meet that demand by getting out there to get some practice in, and hopefully some competitive games before the summer finishes.
I mean, leading on from that, my two children have been lucky enough to be able to use the facilities at Leyland over the last couple of weeks. And just seeing how engaged they've been after a long period of not being able to do anything, just from 2 sessions, their enthusiasm has just increased dramatically. And it can only have a good effect for all of us just to get out there, like you say, and have a blowout with the bat or with the ball, or, whatever suits you. So, yeah, I'm totally in agreement with both of you. Like I said, taking it on from the winter. I'm sure that enthusiasm for the majority of people, and it's certainly what we've been hearing from messages and putting the feelers out for who would be interested, that enthusiasm doesn't seem, thankfully, touch wood, to have waned with majority of people. So hopefully that'll continue, and hopefully the netting will start within the next 2 weeks, and we'll get on with things. Taking on from something that Naz said in terms of getting out onto the field, I just want to move on to the potential for cricket to be played. We're starting to hear more about leagues being instructed that cricket potentially could be starting soon. And I know there's been a document circulated today to ECB Premier Leagues and to the counties to almost, I don't want to use the word expect, but be prepared for cricket to restart, I think sometime around mid-July. Whether that'll apply to us, so we're not strictly speaking an ECB Premier League, but whether that'll apply or not, we don't know. Now, we've been given certain information by the league in terms of potential structure, one of which was half season, one of which was a potential cup competition. And when we spoke about this as a committee, I think you'll both agree we were wholeheartedly in support of pretty much whatever form cricket would take. And I think we'd all discussed between ourselves that even if we had to arrange 4 or 5 friendlies in September, we would have been keen to do something along those lines. But
definitely,
now things are starting to become a little bit more structured. From what's been said, certainly let's aim at that cup competition structure that's been mentioned in terms of a small group with potentially leading to a little knockout phase, which I think is a really good idea in all honesty. Geographically based, and we'll be playing against lads we know and we've known for years, and even that'll be a good touch. Dave, you go first. What's your thoughts on what's been said? Certainly from a Palace Shield perspective, but generally in terms of just getting out there and getting some games on.
I mean, for me, the bottom line is I feel that it's important that there is competitive cricket. I think that's the key to keep people engaged and motivated. Friendlies are great, but friendlies are they serve a purpose at the start of the season to get you into those competitive games. That's what gets people playing sport in general. It doesn't have to be cricket. That's it gets people's interest, that competitive nature. So I think that's the fundamental key to any season that we have. Be it a half season, which unfortunately seems unlikely given the time remaining in the summer, or perhaps more realistically some kind of shortened cup competition. As long as it's competitive and teams are playing to win, then I'm happy with whatever format that comes out. The other key thing that I think would be good to be addressed is if there's any chance of some kind of junior games and all-stars / dynamos. I think that is absolutely key, and I'm not sure I've heard anything about that, whether that is coming back this summer. As we've said before in earlier podcasts, building on the on the momentum and the potential that was built up last year after the World Cup win, the exposure on free-to-air TV, a really dramatic Ashes series, it was all building to this summer to be one really good for junior cricket, getting, lots of young kids interested in playing the sport. And that just obviously, for nobody's fault, just seems to have fallen away. So I'd really like to see, hopefully, something for them for the rest of the summer, even if it is just 5 or 6 training sessions, a couple of matches, just to keep them going until hopefully we can get back to normal winter nets in a few months' time.
Well, just before I throw it over to Naz, I know, just speaking about juniors, it seems to be flip-flopping a little bit between our juniors the priority in terms of getting a junior match programme running, or our seniors the priority. It seems to be one week I'm hearing juniors are going to get started before seniors, then the next week I hear no, seniors are going to get started before juniors. Doesn't seem to be any real cohesion behind that at the moment. But Naz, you've listened to a lot of you're on the committee yourself, you've heard a lot of the comments in terms of the potential structure and stuff like that. What's your thoughts, and are you particularly bothered about what the structure is?
Guys, a few months ago, we could never imagine what's happened, Going back to our pre-season, end of January, we were so excited, thinking, we're going to be going and playing cricket, and then all of a sudden, all this happens. We could never imagine we would be locked in our homes, now, having experienced that for the past few months, now, a month ago, we were, the kind of news that was from the government was coming out was, there was very little chance of any sports, grassroots sports. Maybe professional, but grassroots, there was very little chance. But now, all of a sudden, past couple of weeks, we've been getting a lot of positive news. And that has really got, I know we've discussed this, and it's got people very excited, all this positive news, obviously, it's good. Ultimately, what we want to be get out of our homes, get back on the field, and start playing the sport that we all love. But obviously there's going to be certain restrictions, conditions. At the end of the day, everybody's safety is paramount. Safety is priority. But I mean, the progress, positive news that's coming out, that we will get some kind of cricket, as Dave mentioned. Ultimately, we want to be playing competitive cricket. But if we don't get the chance of getting a normal kind of, even in half a season, something like that, I think the option of having it like a smaller league, a smaller competition, very positive. I'll be up for that. And I think it'll be very interesting, something new.
Yeah,
absolutely. And at the end of the day, we will get, some cricket. So, I think anything that we can get is a positive.
It'll mean something is riding on every match.
Exactly,
If there's 5 or 6 games, it means everyone matters, and so people won't miss one. So it could be really good.
I've got to say, the thing that sort of perked my interest from a different angle was this fact that the league are talking about maybe regionalising it, purely from the point that they don't want people travelling long distances on a regular basis. And I think we look at the clubs around us, and generally speaking, literally, and as we're going to come on to Naz in a bit with his questions, and I'm sure he's going to touch on a lot of the old Chorley League clubs. A lot of those clubs around us are our neighbours, our friends. We get on with the majority of clubs within our local area, and I think that'll be quite key. And as well as them being competitive, as Dave says, I think the very fact that we'll be getting out on the field and playing against lads that we've played against for years, we know the lads, it'll be a nice way to integrate it back in. And I think that, for me, has been a nice little slant on it. And I'm sure the guys out on the Fylde course will probably feel the same. Fylde playing against Thornton Cleveleys, against Norcross. Everybody knows each other, and I think it'll be a nice introduction, whilst maintaining that competitive edge, a nice introduction back to saying, right, we're going to play some cricket, and you're playing it against a lot of guys that you've got a lot of history with, and it's just a nice way to introduce it back. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens over the next, I think hopefully over the next week or so, we might hear some more news, and fingers crossed it's good news. So we'll wait and see on that. But yeah, so that's the news. Hopefully Whately-Dale getting back into some nets, and hopefully some competitive cricket soon. Okay, Dave, we're going to move on now to what's fast becoming one of our regular parts, Tales from the Dale. And as we discussed with Mr. Winstanley, Naz's, I'm going to say better half, that doesn't necessarily sound right, but Naz and Gareth have been friends for many, many years, and we discussed with Gareth some of the tales that have come out of Whately-Dale, so I'm sure we're going to get more from Naz. So I'm going to hand it over to Dave, and Dave's going to be the master of ceremonies with some of the questions. Off you go, Dave.
Yeah, cheers, Neil. So we're going to start, Naz, with if you can remember your earliest cricketing memory at all, and what that was.
Earliest cricketing memories, I think it was when I was about 6 or 7. Playing, I used to. We had like a youth club where I live, and we had like a football pitch there. And during the winter, at the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, all we used to do was play football. And then come summer, it was cricket on the football pitch. We actually used to play cricket on the football pitch all the summer, I remember. So those are my earliest memories, and they were great days. Yeah, that's where I mean, I used to play every sport then, but yeah, summer it was always cricket. I remember, we used to go around collecting all the players up, and then collecting all the gear, wickets, bats, everything, and then getting there and picking the teams and everything. And yeah, so about 7 or 8, yeah. So those were early memories. That's where love of the game started, really.
So building on that, what was your first match like? What age was that? And can you remember what you did? Did you get any runs or wickets?
The first match, I think it was at school when we used to play the inter-house competitions. That was my first proper cricket match, and I opened the batting, and I batted all the way through. And I think
nothing changes then, Naz. Nothing changes.
Yeah,
I'll give the strike.
And I think I got about 28.
Yeah, nothing changes then. There you go.
I batted all the way through, and I think about 28. Yeah, so that was my first match inter-house at school.
Nothing wrong with that. That's a good score for me.
That's a good
score. Mind you, it was 28 of about 15 overs, though. I think there were only 15 over innings or something like
that's all right.
Still too many for me.
Yeah.
So at that time, who was like your first cricketing hero? Who did you look up to?
Oh, no doubt about that. Imran Khan. Imran Khan was my hero when I first got into cricket. I used to love watching him. Everything. He had everything. Not only was he a good cricketer, but good looking. He had all the women around. Yeah, he was my hero and still is. Imran Khan, yeah.
Yeah.
So apart from Imran Khan, is there any other pro that you like to be now? If you could be any of them, who would it be?
I admire Hashim Amla a lot. I love his batting. He's been a great batsman over the past 10-15 years. I do like Hashim Amla. I love watching him. Not only is he a good batsman, but I mean, I've read a lot about him away from cricket. He's a really good person. The South African guys, a lot of the South African players, they've done a lot of they have a lot of good things to say about Hashim Amla. So the way he conducts himself, and so I really like Hashim Amla. I do still, when he was playing Michael Atherton, he was one of my favourite. I used to like him, and I love watching him, listening to him on the TV now as well. So yeah, these guys, like them.
You've got to admire, Dave. I've got to say, there's something quite good to admire an opening batsman having two opening batsmen as people to look up to. There's some symmetry there, isn't there? You know, we had Gareth likening himself.
I've not always been an opening batsman.
No, I know that, Naz, but we'll run with that now, seeing as that's
yeah.
I do like that symmetry. Gareth, likening himself to David Gower the other week. Didn't quite pull that one off, to be honest.
Gower.
Yeah. So I like the symmetry there, Naz. That's good.
Yeah.
So if we sort of turn to like your time at the Dale, can you remember your first game for Walterdale? Who was that against? How did it go?
Blimey. My first game for Walterdale was actually for second team. Playing for second team away at Fenniscoles. We batted first, and I think they sent me in at number 3 or 4. I got about 34, something like that. We won the game, and when we were bowling, we had a guy who used to play for us called Pete Day. Yeah, he used to open the ball, he used to bowl all the way through, and that was my first game anyway. He got 9 wickets.
Wow.
Yeah, he would have got 10, but I dropped a catch off his bowling.
Classic. Oh, lad.
Yeah, that was my first game for Walton Le Dale. Yeah, and that was the only game I played for seconds actually, because the following week they took me up to the first team.
Way to make an impression, that Naz.
Yeah.
So if that was
Pete Day wasn't happy.
If that was your first game, what's been your favourite game over the many years you've played?
Bloody hell. Favourite game. I've been here nearly 30 years now. There's been a lot of good games over the past 30 years. The most favourite one probably would be, I think, one of the cup finals. Well, the one that we won, really. 2002 against Brinscoll at White Copies. That would be my favourite. But I mean, apart from that, yeah, there's been a lot of great encounters, especially in the old Shoalhaven District League. But yeah, the 2002 Lake Cup final. Reason being, I think that was probably the first trophy Walton Le Dale won after a very long time.
Did you get 50 in that final, Naz?
It was actually the start of, I won't say domination, but after that, after we won that cup, I think the next 5 or 6 years we got to 5 cup finals, yeah, and also obviously we won the league as well. So yeah, that was the start of a good, very successful era for the club.
Excellent.
Good times.
Yeah. Penultimate question now. What is the best performance that you've seen for Walton Le Dale?
Blimey. There's been a lot of great performances, and there's been a lot of really good performances that I've not actually been there. I've not watched, but the ones that I've actually seen, I think I'd have to go back about 15, 20 years when Raymond Shaw was playing for us. He was really in his prime then. I remember him getting 89 at home against Whitley Woods. And Whitley Woods were actually the champions at that time. And they had a very good bowling attack. Steve Wilton was their opener. We had 3 other bowlers. And Shaw actually got 89 that day. That was a very good performance. So that was going back 20 years. But in recent times, I think the best performer, probably Aussie batsman, really. I mean, Alex Sainz, I saw him get 100 up at Grimsby. That was a brilliant knock.
That I've got to say, Naz, I'm glad you brought that one up, because that we touched on that in the 2015 season discussion.
Yeah.
But that was the season before, and I think
that's
that was actually
a
better knock than any of the hundreds that he got in the record-breaking season, the season after. The number of times that ball disappeared over the pavilion was scary that day.
Brilliant, yeah, that was brilliant. And then in terms of bowling, Gayas, he's had some brilliant bowling performances. Gayas, bloody hell, man! I remember him bowling up at Fenniscoles. I think he must have bowled about 15 overs, about 10 runs or something like that, and he had a lot of performances like that. To be honest, Gaias in terms of bowling, those are the ones I can really recall top of my head. Really,
I've got to back Naz up on Gaias because when I was captain, it was an absolute joy just to throw him the ball at the start of the innings. Because as Naz says, you would get such a frugal spell, but you get wickets with it as
exactly.
well. You get at least an opening spell of 7 or 8 overs for very few runs, and you could almost guarantee at least a couple of wickets out of it as well. And it was just such a consistent performer.
Tell you one thing about Gaias. So when he first started playing for Walton Liddell, obviously he's been a bowler all the time. He had about 10 or 12 years where he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. All he wanted to do was run in and ball fast and fast, and he had no control at all. But for some reason, I think he's kind of a bit of a late developer. I think.
Yeah.
After the first 10, 12 years, he was unbelievable. It's like Neil just said. You could throw the ball at him, and you could rely on him. You know, he'd give you exactly what you asked for. So he was brilliant. Yeah. One of the best bowlers I've ever played with, Gaias. And to be honest, he's lost a lot of his fitness now. I see him quite regularly, but I'm sure if he came up to the pitch now and we give him ball here, guys, have a couple of overs, he'll be the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has that much control with the ball.
100%.
And so the last question, Naz, you look back over as you said, your near 30 years. What's the favourite Walterdale memory that brings a smile to your face in those cold winter days when you think of?
Bloody hell! I tell you what, there's lots of memories going back over the times. I can't really say what's the most favourite, but I mean, obviously, you want to, remember the good times, don't you? And the successes. Neil mentioned 2015. In the recent times, that was brilliant. That was a brilliant season. We had a really good team, really good group. Everybody contributed to the success. So I really enjoyed that. Prior to that, when we actually won the Chorley District, I think it was a final. That was final year when we won that Chorley District League champions. That was a very good season. I think those two successes, they're probably at the top of when you look back at past 30 years.
Excellent. Well, Dave, thanks for the questions. Now, as we knew we'd get an insight off you, such a long history with the club. We knew we'd get some good answers and some absolute crackers in there, making everybody smile. I'm sure I can just imagine the likes of Sam Bolton and Ainsley listening to that and absolutely creasing up about some of those answers. So I think you'll have given some good entertainment there, pal. And as I say, you've touched on a couple of things that Gareth touched on. I think that Leigh Cup final was one of his memories as well, and certainly the winning of the last Chorley League the year before we all joined the Palace Shield was a huge moment for the club. That in the last year of the Chorley League. So absolutely, pal. Really, really good to hear your memories, and thanks for joining us. Really appreciate that.
No, thank you very much.
We just, as I say, we'll just wrap it up by saying again, tomorrow we've got another one of the virtual matches. The first team back in action. Naz will be back in action tomorrow virtually.
Brilliant.
Opening the innings as usual against Lancaster, against your old mate Shah. Your old mate Shah's made the Lancaster seconds team. So yeah, you'll be playing against him virtually tomorrow. So that's fine. So that's on tomorrow at 1:30.
Try not to get run out this time.
Yeah, hopefully you don't get run out, and hopefully you don't run Ainsley out. This is getting far too regular. So that's all to go, and hopefully
I'm sure you fixed that, Neil.
No,
I'm sure you've got that fixed every Saturday.
I don't do stuff like that. It's a game. That's all it does. So,
no, I could just imagine you on Friday night writing a code for that game somehow. I want to run out here.
If only I could. I'm not that technologically advanced now, believe you me. Just touching on some of the future things we want to look at. We are looking at different things and other guests to bring on the podcast. Obviously, we've had the couple of pros on. We're looking at other pros and we're talking to them guys. So hopefully we'll have some other special guests. If not, we've got plenty of guys within the club, much like Naz, that have plenty of tales to tell. So we've got a long hope for these podcasts to advance. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have some information to give about matches and and people's performance at Nets soon. So we're really hopeful about that. But Dave, thanks for joining me again. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem, Neil. Enjoyed it.
And Naz, thanks again. Always bring a smile to our faces, and always have a good laugh with you. So thanks for coming on, pal.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
No worries. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed another Up the Dale podcast, and we'll see you again soon. See you later.